JustFlight have released their BAE 146 Airliner for Microsoft Flight Sim. In my opinion, one of the best products in terms of value for money, starting off with an incredibly realistic aircraft that you will actually need to go away and spend some time studying before you can get anywhere with it, to a beautiful cockpit, a fantastic collection of liveries and variants, all in all creating an engaging and frankly fun experience. In today's video, I'll be reviewing this aircraft. I'll be explaining what type of review this will be in a minute, giving you my opinion and telling you whether or not it is worth it. Let's get right into it. So hello guys, I'm Pilot Stud. If you're new around here, I do plenty of flight simulation news all the time, keeping you up to date with the most important flight sim info. In today's video, I kind of take an all-in-one quick look at the BAE 146. Now, I've been flying around with this aircraft plenty for the last 24 hours. It's certainly been an up and down experience, to speak both literally and metaphorically. I love this plane. It's one of my favourite planes in real life, the last proper British airliner, so it does hold a very special place in my heart. Now, I flew this all over the shop, from Amsterdam to Norwich, London City, of course, Southend, Australia, the list goes on. I really have been testing it out extensively. Now, this review isn't necessarily going to be a long kind of review delving into the technicalities of it, because that's not what my channel is about. My channel is about taking a sort of all-in-one look, like a hobbyist flight simmer would do. I'm not a real-life airline pilot, none of that, but if you want to go see those videos, I've linked some good reviews by the likes of A320 Sim Pilot. I believe he did one down below. So let's start off with price, then we'll talk about variants and liveries, external model, interior model, systems, flight model, in that order basically, before reaching my final thought. To start off with price, you can pick this up for just under 50 UK pounds, which is about 75 US dollars or 60 euros, roughly. That's just off the top of my head. If you had the previous X-Plane 11 version, like me, you can pick it up for 10% off at 45 UK pounds. It's available exclusively on the JustFlight website, but it will be coming onto the marketplace, meaning yes, it's coming to Xbox. Now we've got that out of the way, as you can see, it's very expensive in terms of what some of you may be used to, but to be honest, for the flight sim market, it's pretty mid-range. And of course, we've had the Fly the Mad Dog X MD-80 come out, which was closer to £75, which I think is absolutely insane. Bearing in mind the simulator costs that, as I've said before, it is an incredibly expensive time to be a flight simmer. So to be fair, JustFlight have been pretty generous with the price here, comparing the product to other ones. Speaking about variants, you get 3 variants plus a few sub-variants. You get the 100, 200 and 300, plus freighter variants and quiet trader variants, as well as a military variant operated by the Royal Air Force, or 2 of them I should say, Mark II and Mark III. All of them include some sort of cabin, and while I wouldn't say it's the best cabin known to man, yes, it does look a bit outdated, and yes, textures are blurry inside, it's still pretty nice. You get a bunch of liveries. I'm going to list them on the screen. I don't even know, I haven't even counted them, but it's got to be 20-30 liveries from across the world. UK, USA, Europe, Australia of course, where this aircraft is still pretty popular. And if you want to make your own liveries, you can of course do that with their paint kit. Now, speaking of the external model, as I said, it's beautiful. It looks really good. Nothing I can pick fault here. I mean, just look at it in the KLM UK livery. I think it does look really good. JustFlight once again have made a really beautiful aircraft here. Now, moving into the cockpit is quite good. I wouldn't call it the best. There's certainly areas that could be improved in my opinion, but I think it still looks rather nice. Moving into the back, into the cabin, this in my opinion was a bit of a letdown. I think the textures, especially closer to the windows, as you can see here on my approach to London City Airport, well, they could be improved. In addition to that, if you're using the passenger variants, You'll notice the seats have a British Airways logo on. That's the case for most or all of them, which is a bit of a letdown. For example, on the Cobham Aviation one, which is a charter airline in Australia, you'll have British Airways seats, which is quite unrealistic, but I'm sure this is something they'll update in the future. So overall, so far, the external model is really good, the cockpit looks quite nice, but the cabin could do with a bit of work. But I'm sure that's not a major letdown for you guys, certainly wasn't for me. Now speaking of systems, this is an aircraft where you're going to have to read the 250 odd page manual. It's not an aircraft where you can just hop into it and expect it to fly for you. Oh no sir, it's nothing like that. I kind of went in with that naive feeling, and flying around Southend I just couldn't get it off the ground. Now something I'd have to say, there is an AFB, but the states, at least in my aircraft, for example the takeoff state, they just don't work. It seems to me that I press the button and the engine shut down. Speaking of engines shutting down, I find another bug is that when I go into settings mid-flight and exit settings, my engines will randomly shut down. So a bit of a bug there, an incredibly annoying one to be fair, as I was flying from Amsterdam Schiphol to Norwich, as my engines just shut down and I couldn't really restart them. But talking about the AFB, it's pretty well done, and there's SimBrief integration as well as Navigraph integration, which you have to go through and link with the FMC. It's quite an easy process, as you can see me doing it here. There is a few bugs, but I will be talking about that later, but aside from that, the systems are very, very, very good. Ticking the high fidelity box, the only thing they're missing really is circuit breakers. Aside from that, every switch, every button, every knob works as you'd expect. But as I said guys, you are going to have to read the manual, watch some tutorials on YouTube, because it is just not an aircraft where you can just hop in expecting it to work. Systems, top notch. Now sounds, I'll move on to sounds here. Sounds are by far the biggest selling point of this aircraft. They are incredible. You've also got something that's quite cool, a first officer that will speak through like V-speeds as you're taking off, which I think is very cool as well. You'll get a taste for how good sounds are when you're starting up and following the included checklists. As you head to the upper overhead panel and do your stall warning tests and that kind of thing, you'll notice the incredible variation and realism of the sounds provided. Now I did say about checklists there, they are included, but be wary. When you click that little blue eye button next to it, for most of them it will take you to the correct location, but for some of them it will not, they probably just won't show up. It must be a bug. Once again, it does mean for some of the checklist items you will need to do a bit of looking around. It's quite an annoying bug, but I imagine it will be fixed by the JustFlight team, because let's be honest, if the checklist isn't 100% complete in that manner, then it's going to stop a few people from being able to start up correctly. Autopilot works as you'd expect. You've got to remember this is not an Airbus. In the BAE 146 there is no VNAV, so you will have to either fly it yourself, and trust me it's a pleasure to hand fly, or rely on vertical speed, which you do have to adjust by going down to the left corner of the centre pedestal. It's nowhere near where you'd expect it to be. Once again, the manual will tell you that. Now quickly speaking about flight model, and while I can't talk about it in complete confidence because funnily enough I don't fly a BAE 146, it feels pretty decent. It's quite a heavy aircraft to fly, as with most older aircraft. It's not fly-by-wire, it's all pulleys, so it does feel a bit different, but it feels nice and I really enjoy flying it. It's a fantastic plane to hand fly, as I've said. Lighting also is pretty good as well. So I think I've given a good general overview. I can't really think of anything else to go through. The systems are high depth. You will have to sit down and learn them. You can't just expect it to work. You might find yourself getting a bit irritated if it doesn't go your way, because it does take quite a bit of time. I was doing roughly 15 minutes every startup, and I must have done about 5-6 startups for this video. But I enjoyed it, you know, it's a nice challenge, it's a different sort of aircraft, and of course, being one of my favourite aircraft in real life, it's worth the time. So is it worth the money? Well, yes, I think so, but I do think you have to know what you're getting into. If of course you love the BAE 146 or its newer brother, the RJ85, which you don't actually get in this one, then yes, it's 100% worth it. But if you're looking for an airliner, just another airliner really, to fill the gap between this and between this time and the PMDG 737, which is coming next week, then I'd probably say save your money for that, because of course that's going to be very expensive. The Whisperjet, Jumbolino, whatever you like to call it, it's a great plane to fly, but it's going to take some time to get used to. It's a different aircraft. Some people compare it more to like flying an ATR than the likes of a 737. It's nothing like a 737, to be fair. It's such a quirky and unique aircraft. And of course, it's perfect for London City Airport. Just know what you're getting into here. JustFlight have done a really awesome job. One thing I didn't talk about is the FMC. It's based off working title systems. The original 146 didn't actually have an FMC. It was retrofitted with one. Next to the FMC is of course a weather radar, but that doesn't work yet. That's an Asobo issue. For you old school pilots, this aircraft was really designed for VOR to VOR flying, using NDBs, that kind of thing, and of course it's perfect for it, with its blend of analog and digital displays, or mostly analog to be fair. There's no digital displays on the 6-pack. But the FMC does allow you to use GPS in a more modern fashion if you want to, so you've got that nice blend and it can be customised in the EFB regardless. The FMC is decent, it's nothing to stand out. I don't know how accurate it is to real life, but aside from that, it is a comprehensive aircraft. You're getting everything in the box, plenty of variants, plenty of liveries, a lot of time needs to be spent on it though. There you go guys, I hope you've enjoyed this review going into plenty of the systems. Talking about how it looks, how it feels, it flies great, but as I said, it's a lot of fun to hand fly. Personally, I prefer that to autopilot flying. But yes, that's it really. I hope you've enjoyed this slightly shorter review. I hope this has kind of given you an overarching view of what I think is a really great aircraft. If I was to give it a score out of 10, I would give it an 8.5 out of 10. There's a few bugs that need to be fixed, some of them very annoying. For example, going to settings, leaving settings, and the aircraft shutting down, which frankly may just be my system, but I don't imagine it is. But if you love flying into London City, then this plane is for you. From me today, that is all. I'll see you around. Have a great day. Thank you so much to my first class channel members. They get a shout out on the screen now. For £50 UK, it's an investment, but if you know what you're getting into, it's well worth it. And on that note, bye bye.
This is